Hey, I'm Tia,
And I'm Toni.
and this is Emotions Unscripted. So, how was your past week or your weekend?
So it has been pretty high stress. So I really had to focus on balancing rest with taking action. I was learning a lot of new things this week, so I really had to practice showing myself grace, like I tell my clients. So definitely, a lot of spiritual baths and taking walks outside. But how was your week or weekend?
It's been good. I've taken some time off from seeing some clients. I sending my kids away to my sisters to go swimming and things like that, because I know that after the past probably 2 months that I've been in this place of high tension and just trying to survive and get through the next day. And so now I'm in like the recovery stage where I feel like the relaxing, as we talked about in our previous episode, like relaxing of the body and things like that, that is helping me to kind of reconnect and reground myself, which I'm loving. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is when I was noticing that transition from the tension to the relaxation is the past month or so that I've had, and I've looked for a new house. We found a new house. I moved, so I packed um, my whole house up mostly by myself because my kids wait to the last minute to do things, and they just like, oh, we'll just move it whenever it's time to go. And it's like, pack it up, pack it up. We need to know how much space I need. I'm like, how do I tell somebody how much is going to be moved when you're waiting to the last minute to get your stuff together? And so we moved, and my daughter was a graduating senior from high school this year. And so we have prom and senior activities and award ceremonies and graduation, and then the little kids' award ceremonies. And this is all in the midst of me still having to work and do a job and things like that. And I just got to this point where it was just like this overwhelming feeling of like pressure, and I was so exhausted every single day. I was hitting like 9:30 came and I was gone. And because my body was like, we can't survive. And normally I'm a future focused person. I look ahead, I see what I have. Oh, we have the summer coming up. What are we going to plan for vacations? Oh, my daughter's 18th birthday is coming up. How do we plan for that? How am I going to get ready for my son's driver's ed classes? How am I going to prepare for the next upcoming school year and making sure we do the transfers because we moved schools? And I would normally be thinking about all that stuff. But when I would try to kind of think forward, my body was like, we're going to die. We're going to completely die if we look any further than this day. We can look maybe to the next day, but that was it. So I was like really in this place of survival. And it's like, you can't do anything else but what you need to be able to survive in this moment. And just thinking about maybe a week in advance, I was like, can't do it. I was like, that week will worry about itself when we get to it. Right now, I can only do this right here. But in the same moment, one of the things is I noticed is that I was just pushing down any emotion, any feeling, anything that came got pushed down, because when you're trying to survive, you can't navigate those emotions. And it's like I don't have time for emotions when I'm sitting here trying to make sure this kid gets to where they're supposed to be. This is ordered in appropriate time. This is done. This is lined up. Did they send off this to the school to be able to make sure they're ready for graduation? Did I remember to give my clients what I told them I was going to get them? No, none of my clients got any of the things they were supposed to get this past month. But when I was in those moments, I couldn't let emotions come up. How am I going to function if I'm sitting here crying because I thought about my mom passing, or I thought about some random thing that I saw on TV. I didn't have time for any of those emotions. And so I just pushed them down, pushed them down, pushed them down. But at the same time, that added to the stress of that survival mode because my body's like aching. And that's why I was sleeping a lot, eating unhealthy. It's just like so many things were just my body was just like, "Ugh," and it was feeling like really, really bad. But my mind's like, no, I cannot address any of that because I have to function through this day right now. So that's what's been going on with me.
And that makes me think about there's certain seasons in our life where we're gonna be in survival mode. We're gonna be busy. Like May is really big. We have kids, we have ceremonies, we have prom, we have graduation. So there are gonna be that time where we have those seasons of life, and it's like really good point at focusing on the present moment. Um, I think one thing that helps me when I'm going through a season of life that's really hectic is focusing on a day at a time. If I don't have the energy for that, focusing on an hour at a time. And sometimes you just have to focus it, bring it
Minute
out
by
even
minute.
more. And
Mhm.
it just kind of helps you with not getting overwhelmed because in May it was really busy. It was really hectic. And to think about June, July, August, or even like December for Christmas is like out of the picture.
Mhm. I think about is being able to look into the past and how we have survived all of our challenging moments and use that as that motivation that you'll get through this next stage. And so, one of the things I talk to my clients about is that you have survived every single one of your challenging moments. And so, you have the skills within you. And so, even when we're functioning in that day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, being able to kind of reiterate to ourselves that you have what it takes to get through these things. Let's slow it down, let's focus in, and it's going to be fine.
I love that. And it's almost like looking at the past. You can utilize the past to think about, what ways can I support myself better? It can be a opportunity for growth as far as supporting yourself through those seasons of life that are more survival mode.
hmm And it makes me think about when I was going through school to become a therapist. Is that we talked a lot about the clients are the expert on their lives. They know what has worked and what hasn't worked, and so we always want to look and see what has worked in the past and what hasn't worked because we have made some decisions that didn't come out in the way that we wanted to, but then we were able to correct it with something else. And so being able to kind of look back and say, you know what? When I was in this moment of high stress, I know that it didn't help for me to talk to other people because other people tend to dump all their stuff on me versus me being able to release my stuff. So let me stay away from other people. And that's one of the things I did. I shut it all down. I had friends that were like, hey, when are we going to get together for dinner? And I was like, I'm out. I'm out of commission until at least June, probably mid June, maybe even July, giving myself time to kind of recharge myself so that I wasn't having to take on additional people's things. And so being able to look back and say, that doesn't work, let me not do that right now, helps me to kind of navigate this period of survival.
For sure. And it almost makes me think of when you are in that period of survival mode, your energy is very fragile. You're in a very vulnerable place. So I think it's really important to consider, the people that you allow access to your life and to your energy, because you want someone to uplift you and to assist you. You don't have any space for someone to drain your energy when you're already, pretty low on your battery.
Yeah. And I like how you said like vulnerable, because that's one of the things I talk to clients about when they're in these states where it just feels like everything is going wrong. And I was like, that's because you're in a vulnerable state. And once you're vulnerable, everything will try to attack you. It's like, oh, the guard is down, the gate is open, whatever it may be. And it's like everything will start flooding in. And because you are in this state of, I'm just trying to survive, you don't have the defenses up to block off this and block off that and block off whatever is coming your way. And so all these things will get in and start attacking you. And it's like everything's happening at once. And it's like everything's not happening at once. Everything is happening as it usually does. But you're vulnerable now and your defenses aren't as strong as they usually are.
For sure, for sure. Definitely like focusing on the present moment, like you said, with May for you, taking it day to day, will just allow you not to look too far in the future because it's going to cause that fear and anxiety, and you don't really have time for that if you're really just focusing on the day to day that you have to focus for in the future or in the present.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of what you had said in a past episode about how we can sometimes put too much energy into other people that it kind of takes away from our focus on ourselves. And I think about that in terms of the whole the strong women kind of thing. And usually the strong woman is that one who's putting a lot of energy into all these other people. And what's happening is that they're in this state of survival. And it's like, I'm pouring so much into these other people that I don't have enough for myself. And I'm trying to appear strong, but I'm really just surviving. And that strongness, what they're seeing is really my suppression of my emotions because I don't have time for my emotions and their emotions at the same time.
For sure. And it makes me reflect on, like, who assigned that role of you or whoever being the strong one?
Mhm.
And are any of us supposed to be the strong one forever? Like, once we get coined that name or that label, because then it makes me think about, who's checking on the strong one? Who's
Mhm.
supporting the strong one? And, the strong one might be suffering in silence because they're doing everything for everyone else and they're running off of autopilot. I have to help this person, I have to help that person. But then at the end of the day, when they're drained and exhausted, do they have any energy left to support themselves?
Yeah. And what sucks is that people usually are getting that title or being placed in that role as the strong one because they're the one who has been most successful at pushing down their emotions. And so it's not even that they're strong, it's just that they are pushing this down and pushing it down and not dealing with it. And so what everybody sees like, oh, they didn't cry in that moment, or oh, they didn't get frustrated. And it's like, oh, they did. It's just all inside of them and it's coming out in different ways. And so we want to look at um, that strongness is more of a survival. It makes me think about when people always ask me about, oh, how did you manage being a single mom of four, or oh, how did you go through natural childbirth, or all those C sections and things like that? And I was like, I had to. I didn't have time for the emotions and the tears and all those types of things. I had to survive. And I really think about it when people are like, well, how did you go through that a natural childbirth? How else was the baby gonna get out? And so it's like, in order for me to survive so I didn't die, I had to push that baby out. And that's just the kind of reality of it. Or I had to have that baby cut out because I was gonna die otherwise. And so when we're faced with, death or survival, we'll choose that survival. But that survival and the way that we choose it or the way we go about it is not always very healthy for us. And we see that with that pushing down of emotions just to kind of get through.
For sure. And, when we are faced with those life or death situations, we put all our energy into making that one decision, whichever decision is best for us. And I think with being in those survival times, it's really important to, you know, shut down those relationships or the energy that you're putting out that's really not serving you in that moment. Like, I used to talk to this friend every day on Mondays at 12 o'clock. But if I'm in survival mode, is it her or is it me? So you just have to think about ways to kind of like um, turn the power off from the sources that you're kind of throwing out there, that you need to give all that power to yourself.
Hmm. And I know people, they like to throw around, well, that's selfish. And I'm a strong believer that the word selfish is a good word, but it has this negative connotation of like, oh, you're being selfish. You're only thinking about yourself. And it's like, how am I supposed to survive if I don't think about myself? Because nobody else is thinking about me. So if I sit here and don't contact anybody, how many people are reaching out to me? A few, if any. And so that means that I have to survive myself. And so I have to focus in on myself because nobody else is doing it. It makes me think about when I was in college, my freshman year. So the first semester, I was going out, I was hanging out with people, we were having fun and things like that. But then what I realized as we started coming on the second semester is that I was doing all the reaching out. I was the one putting the energy into making sure that we connected and we had things to do. And of course, I had the car. And so, being able to transport people to parties and things like that. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to call anybody this semester. And when I didn't call anybody that semester, guess who called me? Nobody. Until they needed a ride to Walmart. And so I realized like being selfish allowed me to pour into myself and do a lot of the things that I wanted to be. But when I was being selfless, I was giving away all of my energy to other people, making it harder for me to kind of survive. And it's like you said, it's me or them.
For sure, because I think that people naturally, consciously or unconsciously, they weaponize people being selfish. And it's like, well, am I being selfish or am I inconveniencing you? Because it sounds like with your experience with college, it just wasn't a good energy exchange. If you're pouring into others, they should be pouring into you. And nothing is 50-50, but it should feel like a flow of energy. This person's pouring into me, pouring into them. I'm making an effort, they're making an effort. But when it becomes one sided, you know, you're going to feel drained.
Mhm. It makes me think about too, like a lot of the people who come to therapy are not the selfish ones. It's those selfless ones. They're the ones who are pouring into other people are who are just operating in this mode of I'm going to survive. I'm just going to survive and I'm going to pour into them so they thrive. And we don't want that exchange. And one of the things I tell my clients is that you need to be more like them. And they're like, they was like, I'm like, what? And I'm like, yeah, because if you're more like them, you're more selfish. You're thinking about your needs, your wants, your desires, the things that you have to survive. And the people that you're surrounding yourself with are going to fulfill those roles. And right now, you're just somebody's role fulfiller where you are pouring into them and they're keeping you around because you benefit them. And so you have to be selfish too and start surrounding yourself with people who benefit you.
Yeah, because being selfless is essentially you're just giving your power away. And then at that point, I think people around you become entitled and they feel that they can have your energy because you've been giving it to them. And once you change up and you become selfish and you focus on yourself, then it's like, oh, well, you changed up. You're different. You're not a good friend. But if you really like look at the layers of it, you're just inconveniencing them because you're not giving them all your energy.
Yeah. You're no longer their ride to Walmart. And so now they have to find another ride and they have to put all that effort into it when you were just easy because you just went along with it. They didn't even have to give you gas money.
Yeah, and they didn't value the energy exchange. It's different when people value the energy exchange. People consider you. People are thoughtful. People think about you. You don't have to make them show effort. They naturally just show it when they're considerate.
Hmm. It makes me think about like times where I've gone out to eat with friends and one of the friends picks up the check for everybody. And it's not so much that I needed it or I asked for it or things like that. They're like, you know what, I'm doing this for you, so you can relax. You can focus on something else instead. And so when you have those good people where there's a good energy exchange, they will free up some of your energy to be able to put back towards yourself.
And you can feel it too. When it's a good equal energy exchange, it feels good. But you know what it feels like to have an energy exchange with someone where it's negative or it's draining or you just feel unappreciated. It's like day and night.
Yeah. And I think what happens is it becomes this whole if I'm giving all of myself to other people, I'm also losing parts of myself. And it's like the person that I'm becoming is this constant giver and giver. And what happens is I don't have the energy to put towards the things I'm supposed to be putting it towards. And so now this environment that I'm in shapes me into somebody else that I wasn't even meant to be. And so we think about I'm in this mode of I need to survive, but my survival is kind of impacting like who I really am in the long run too.
Yeah, it almost sounds like, thinking about like your human experience blueprint, which you're given, go to college, go to work, this line of action that you're supposed to take, and then your soul blueprint of whatever your higher purpose is for being here as a soul having a human experience. And I think that when people are always in that mode of survival, they're going to be leaning more towards that human blueprint experience. And that's when they reach those midlife crises or they reach that point of just feeling disingenuine and they're feeling like they're missing something, like they don't feel fulfilled.
Hmm. Yeah. And so being able to kind of break people out of that survival mode, I think a lot of it has to do with getting them to accept and be more in touch with their emotions, because that's what gets pushed down the most. And once you are allowing those kind of emotions to come back up to the surface, you can start reconnecting with yourself and valuing yourself. And it's like, if my emotions are out of control, or my emotions are at the surface level, then that means that I don't even have the energy to put into other people, because I'm putting them into my own management of my emotions. And so being able to bring all that stuff up out of the people who are in survival mode is going to be like a ticket to, being able to release that mode of being in survival and just start to like live your life and thrive.
For sure. And it makes me think about people always talk about relationships and how long they've been friends with a friend. But if you think about it, no one talks about how long you're in a relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have yourself as a relationship for the rest of your life, for your
Like
whole
partner.
yeah, exactly. I'm my life partner. So it's really important to recognize that you are the most important relationship in your life, regardless of if you have kids or if you have parents. Like, you literally are your life partner, and you have to treat yourself accordingly so you're able to thrive in those survival modes in those times.
Yeah. It makes me think about like the whole till death do us part. And it's like, that's with yourself. When you die and your body lays into the ground and your soul goes up, that's the death do us part type of thing that we're talking about, not with like another person. So,
Yeah, and it almost sounds like programming if you think about it. It's like the idea of it is right, death do us part, but what it's applied to with a marriage or a contract, it's very superficial, and it's not genuine,
mhm.
because that relationship can end and you just get a divorce or you separate, and that's it. It's the end, it's done. But the relationship that you have with yourself is continuous.
Mhm. It makes me think about, I'm a true crime junkie, and I was recently listening to this podcast, and it was talking about this woman who had killed two of her partners. And in each instant, the partner was trying to leave them and they killed them. And I was like, people are taking that literally, that death till death do us part. I was like, okay, if you're going to leave, that means one of us needs to die. And so we can't just kind of separate on our own terms. But you can separate on your own terms from people. And so even though that marriage certificate or whatever, I don't want to call it a pledge, whatever commitment is till death do us part, it's really not. It's until y'all decide that y'all aren't ready for each other, that y'all aren't meant to be with each other, and then us ourselves is the true till death do us part.
And it makes me think of the fact that when people get married or they have relationships, it's like people almost take ownership over that other person.
Mhm.
But you don't own anyone. Even if you're married, I don't own my partner, and he doesn't own me. But at the same time, it's like that commitment to yourself is the one that is forever.
Yeah. But what you see a lot of is like with is like women, and they stay in that mode of survival. I have to survive, but I'm going to pour into my husband. I'm going to pour into my kids. I'm going to lose myself in all of these people. And so, what my soul is doing is just trying to function while I'm pouring into all these other people around me. And it's not until, kids start going off, and maybe there's like a divorce, or there's less distractions from the woman, that she's able to start pouring into herself, and she moves out of that mode of just trying to get through the day, and she's able to start living her lives. I think that's why we see a lot of women in their 40s to 50s starting to separate from their relationships, because they starting to step out of that survival mode. And it's like, wait a minute, I can live life now. I don't have to take care and pour all my energy into these kids, and I definitely don't have to do it to this husband. So I'm just going to go and be single and live it up. And so you're seeing that big movement from, I'm just surviving, just trying to get through this next day because this is what I'm supposed to do. and being released from that and being able to kind of just breathe finally.
And I think that's really important, with being a parent, a mother, a father, and, you're taking care of little ones is, don't lose yourself. Don't lose your relationship. I feel like relationships are based off of growth. You grow with your partner, you grow with your kids. Sometimes you grow apart and sometimes you don't. And I feel like having that flexibility of what's realistic. We don't know what's in the future. We don't know what's going to happen. We can't control everything, but just being open to seeing how things kind of fall into place, but not losing yourself, interacting with your hobbies, learning new things, always growing and investing in yourself, I think is very helpful for not losing yourself in the process.
Yeah, it kind of it reminds me of what I was talking about at the beginning in terms of like that heavy stressful period. And during that period, like my little one would be like, "Oh, can you do this?" or "Oh, can we do this?" And I'm like, "I'm just trying to freaking function." And so being able to kind of step away and be like, "Yes, a good mother would go and take this kid to the park, but in order for me to function as a good mother for the rest of this month or for the rest of this year, I have to sit back on this couch and just watch TV." And that's what I have to do right now in order to move myself out of that robotic mode of just surviving and to be able to thrive and be a good mother who's engaged and active in their lives. And so today I need to just sit on this couch and so I can be there tomorrow to take them to the park.
And I think it's really important to remember when you are in those like seasons of survival to give yourself more grace than you normally would. Give yourself grace, talk to yourself like a friend, talk to yourself kindly, try to find ways to support yourself, really rationalize and have that dialogue that, I'm going through a busy time right now, but I'm grounded. I know myself. I'm on the right track. Everything's going to work out. Those little pep talks really help you with that survival mode instead of just chaos. Like, I have to do this, I have to do that. Like, slow down. It's okay. Go get you iced coffee, relax, and everything is going to work itself out.
Yeah. And I think it also, we have to think about in order for us to move out of that survival mode, we have to recognize when we're in it. And a lot of times we are just labeling it as, "Oh, I'm just strong," or "I'm a hard worker," or "I'm a really good mother." And it's like, no, you're in survival mode. You're just trying to push through and get through all of these things. And so being able to, as we've previously talked about, is like being able to check in with your body and see what's going on, recognizing if you are connected mentally to your body, being able to make sure that you're present in these moments, making sure that you're not on autopilot, just going through like this robotic kind of stage. And if you're noticing yourself doing those things, you've probably fallen into a mode of just trying to survive versus actually living your life. Because we don't live our lives, we don't thrive on autopilot. We survive on autopilot, just constantly doing those things that we know gets us through the day and helps us to survive.
For sure. And once you actually acknowledge that you're in survival mode or you're having like a tough time, it's really important to schedule time in for yourself. Schedule time in for yourself so you have time to reflect, you have time to process any emotions that you need. I think even if it's 10, 15 minutes in the morning or in the afternoon, put it on your calendar and like make yourself a priority like amongst the chaos.
Mhm. And that's one of the things that I've been doing and why I stepped back with taking on some new clients. It's why I cleared out my weekends, is that I noticed that I needed to step out of that mode. And it was like probably a good 2 months solid of being in that mode, and my body was not responding well. And it was like, step out of that mode, chill out, relax, take some things off your plate, start smelling the roses again, kind of thing.
Yeah, and going back to like checking in with your body, there's going to be periods of times where we're not going to be taking action. Like I always say, like we're human beings, we're meant to be, not human doers. And we'll get in this action of or season of just doing, doing, doing. And, just be aware that there are those times where you do need to relax. You do need to have more quiet time, more time to be introspective. Think of it as a reset. Don't think of it as a season of I'm not doing enough. It's like, well, maybe it's time to like focus on your internal world. Especially like for me, I find like if I'm trying to do certain things and take certain actions and I'm getting hit with roadblocks or the universe is kind of telling me to slow down or doors are closing, it's like, you know what? Let me attract it instead of trying to control it. And it makes it easier to kind of sit back and reflect and then allow the energy to flow.
It's like I've been listening to this book, Wheels of Life, and one of the things that she talks about is sometimes we have to limit things in order for us to grow. And so being able to kind of dial things back and clear our plates in order to open up ourselves for some of those things that are supposed to be happening in our lives. Because if we're constantly busy and we're constantly doing this and this and this, and we're not allowing our emotions to flow, our emotions can then, they can't guide us in the directions that we're supposed to be going in because we're trying to be in control of it all. And so being able to just draw back is a benefit. It clears your mind. It gives you space to kind of do other things and really develop.
For sure. And it almost makes me think about like my cell phone, like with it getting updates, with me clearing out the storage is getting too large, just clearing out the maintenance. It's almost like, you know, when you're in that survival mode, it's like look at your maintenance. You know, look at your foundation. How well are you taking care of yourself? How well are you supporting yourself? Are you throwing out the trash? Are you cleansing yourself? Are you cleansing your mind? Are you giving yourself that quiet time? So I think we're always in that's we're always in that process of maintaining. But when we're in that survival mode, it gets a little bit trickier.
Hmm. And so being able to free ourselves, release ourselves from the grind, basically.